Hello, my corporate sisters, Elizabeth, Dr. E. Carter here. Excited for you to be involved in this conversation I am having with one of my truest, dearest friends and corporate sisters, Danielle Tutson. Let me tell you a little bit about Danielle. She is an award-winning entrepreneur who has over 8 years of experience in human resources and 5 years in accounting. She is she's hyper focused as an influence coach. You hear that, y'all? Influence coach who develops forward thinking solutions and establishes synergistic cultures to reach high performance goals. Man, with that, I would want to work for her. That's powerful, powerful. She holds a bachelor's degree in music from Chapman University and a master's degree in human resource management from Webster University. In June 2021, she earned her CPHR accreditation from HRCI. And in April 2022, she graduated from the inaugural cohort of Majores de Haas Entrepreneur Program. And she can tell us more about that when we have a little bit more conversation with her. What I want to dwell in is really in her corporate career. So, first of all, she's a passionate people solutions architect with extensive experience creating innovation strategic plans to drive efficacy and organizational success. She's been involved, like we mentioned, she's been involved in finance and HR, and a lot of those venues. She was probably the only woman of color in her organization. And we're going to talk a bit about how that has been for her and how she's been able to navigate. So, welcome, Danielle. Excited to have you with me here today.
Hi, Dr. Carter. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit more about your corporate journey.
Sure. I would say before corporate life, I was a performing artist. In Pittsburgh, there's a school called Kappa. I graduated from there. It's a performing arts school. And I studied musical theater and dance. And I was going to take the world by storm and be a dancer. I was going to go and dance for Alvin Ailey, and life did not really follow what I wanted. So I ended up at Chatham University. And I still danced and sang. I studied opera there, but I didn't quite understand opera and what it means for minorities being in opera because that's a unique thing. There's not a lot of minority opera singers. So I did not continue to go on in that career path. After college, I got married and I was like, oh boy, I guess I got to get a real job. And my first job was at a law firm. Well, it was a firm that did class action lawsuits. So I learned all about the back end of like how lawsuits work in the class action world. And I ended up in accounting in that department, sending out the disbursement checks. So long way from singing and dancing, So I started there and I pivoted a little bit and tried to run my own daycare. That kind of went okay for a little bit. Then I had to go back to corporate. So I ended up doing a little bit more of just trying to understand like what I wanted to do, maybe trying to figure out what I wanted to study for my master's degree. Um, but long story short, we ended up moving to Kansas City, Missouri, and I had an opportunity to work at one of the bigger insurance companies there, and it was assurance employee benefits. And so I learned all about like employee benefits. Like I would have never thought there was so much to know. And that's kind of how I ended up in an HR space and like learning a little bit more there, and I was really passionate about education. So I did a bit of teaching for a few years. I taught fifth grade. It was a very eye-opening experience for me. And I quickly learned that I have to raise my own family and not 23 other people's children. So I went back into corporate myself. I made a personal choice there. And that's when I decided to get my master's in human resource management. And I was working at Blue Cross Blue Shield at the time in their finance department doing accounts payable. And I was finishing up my master's degree. And the funny story, I worked out every morning with one of the women who was the head of facilities there. And she reported up through the HR department. And I would say, how can I get an HR? Because in accounts payable, I used to process all the HR invoices. So I was like, I got a little bit of HR. I'm in school. And so she got me a conversation with the vice president of HR at that time. And I asked him, I said, I'm in school. I work here already. How can I get an HR? And he was like, well, do you like the number side or do you like the people side? I said, I like the number side. He said, well, unfortunately, you're going to have to leave and get experience and come back. And so I walked away from that meeting. I was so sad. I was like, I can't believe this. Like, I'm right here. You know me. Why would I have to leave? But that's the way it was. But fortunately, I got my first like real HR job as the director of accounting and HR. So it was a nice hybrid role in a company that did employee benefits administration. So kind of full circle to what I had learned there. Um, and I learned a lot there. I had a good opportunity to really focus on process improvement and how do you improve your processes to give value to the company, even though you're not a profit cost center, in the P&L. But what you do has impact on how they, reduce their operating costs. So, and then my family and I moved to Pittsburgh, and I was like, I need to do HR. Period. No more finance. So that's when I really made a decision to get an HR job, and I started my career in Pittsburgh in 2017 as a benefits manager, employee benefits manager at a big like temp agency around the US. And then fortunately I was able to go to Highmark and I entered there as benefits manager for retirement, learned all about shared services. Very good experience. And then I was fortunate enough to have someone who kind of was an ally for me and gave me an opportunity to really grow and become a director there in shared services. And since then, I've kind of stayed in HR shared services and moved through several different companies. My most recent was with Kraft Heinz, running their shared services for North America. And now I'm with Wabtec, running global HR operations in shared services.
Wow, what a phenomenal career. And I heard a few things that we want to definitely dig into. I loved how you were able to flex in and out of different opportunities and be authentic about it. So we'll talk a little bit about transferable skills and how you were able to maneuver. Relationships, so important. But let me first go back to when you talked about opera and how you decided that was not for you. Was it because you didn't see enough people that looked like you to guide you? Or did you feel as if your skills could be of more value elsewhere?
I honestly think it was a maturity thing for me. Whenever I did my recitals, no one knew what I was saying. All my friends would be like, I have no idea what you said, but you looked really good doing it. And I grew up singing gospel music, so to turn around and sing opera is a completely different style of singing. And I just didn't understand like what kind of gift I had. So I always talk to my kids about it, like, take advantage of the opportunities in front of you. I just think that I didn't really understand what it meant. And truthfully too, Dr. Carter, there were not a lot of people who look like me, so and it was just different from my culture that I grew up. So I just didn't understand it quite.
Do you think any part of that journey stays with you today as and lends itself to where you are in your journey in your role here working with WebTech?
Absolutely. Now that I'm in the global role, when I sang opera, I used to have to sing in French, Spanish, English, Italian. And although I wasn't fluent in those languages, you have to study the lyrics not only you have to know how to say it correctly, but what it means. So I definitely have an appreciation of all the languages around the world, and being able to communicate what you really mean, to someone else. So that's helped. And also just the discipline of studying hard for something and delivering a good product. So oftentimes in corporate, I think people really lean towards mediocrity and they accept it as that's the norm. But that discipline I got studying opera really taught me like you need to strive for excellence because you're always as good as your last performance. So that kind of keep that as the way I operate.
I love that. You are as good as your last performance. And I love the essence of having to learn the various languages because when we think about being in the workplace, there are so many different cultures that we are now working with. But it really is upon us to better understand and study everyone that we don't know and understand to have better relationships. Oh, that's awesome. And that takes me to my next point about relationships. So I love how you mentioned, and we never know who knows who in organizations. We could be in the gym with somebody we know. We might see somebody in the supermarket. Our kids might play soccer together, and you never know who that person knows that may be able to help you. So, how important do you think it is for the relationship aspect in corporate careers, especially for corporate sisters?
I think it's very important. You have a reputation and they say it precedes you. So whether it's good or it's bad, your reputation is very, very important and just being genuine in who you are. So if you're a good person, that genuine and your personality is going to just shine through. And a lot of times to get stuff done, you have to know people. And a lot, it's all built around trust too. So people do business with people that they trust. And so just kind of making those connections and showing whatever interest you have in trying to grow your career as well, but also just genuinely caring about others and getting to know them has really gone a long way for me in my career.
That's great. I love it. I love it. And it has allowed you to, I would say, move with the seasons. So as you articulated your journey, you have been through several, I will call them transformations, and you've been able to transfer skill sets from one area to another. But you also mentioned that you have a family and you are very much passionate about growing your own career personally and professionally. So talk to me a little bit about and we all can see behind you your logo Woman's Glory. So that is your entrepreneurial side of everything that you are working to balance between all you indicated around your journey and where you are today. So tell me a little bit about, first of all, on the career side, when you're thinking long term and longer range, what are your ultimate goals?
So for me, Woman's Glory represents a conglomerate I'd love to build sometime in the future. And as I look back at my career experiences, it really I feel like it's been nothing but a grounds for teaching. Like every opportunity I've had in the corporate space, I've seen myself grow and learn. And so when it's time for that entrepreneur side, I think I will be very, very ready. And all the different levels that I've worked at in corporate America as well has really helped me just take those learnings and say, how would I do it different? Are there things I would do the same? And how would I make my own company better someday in the future?
Awesome. That's great. And then personally, I know, would you ever consider going back to any of those other passions that you had prior?
Um, I still not giving up on wanting to do my own dance company. Someday, somehow, when I was young, I wanted to have a musical theater company, a dance company, and we were gonna, take youth and transform their lives and all kind of things. So, it's still there. I figure, you got to make some money in order to go out and get your business where you need it to be. So,
And how did you determine that it was time to move back to something? How did you know it was time to go back into corporate? Or how did you know when it was time to maybe leave corporate for a while and move into teaching and then leave teaching and come back out? Some of those signals.
I'll say when I decided to go into teaching, I do have a strong sense of like connection to young people because there's things that happened for me in my youth that teachers and community educators really molded me and put some principles in me of who I am today. And so I just felt so strong about giving back and trying to reach back to younger people and say, can I be that same light that an adult was for me and when I was that age? So that's what called me towards teaching. And then because I had a family, I'm like, well, look, you work like more than 40 hours a week as a teacher and you make nothing. So kind of just coming to terms with what are my responsibilities that I need to cover financially, and I have people I could teach in my life, may not be other students, but I have my own children to teach. So,
I love that. And the important point of that is that you knew it wasn't like you said, I want to make this work. You knew that it came a point in time that, first of all, you could always go back to it if you needed to, same as if you needed to go back into corporate, you did. And you continued to build your skill set. So you had your bachelor's, you decided to go back for your master's to make sure that you were always ready for that pivot. And I love how, even though the gentleman who he said to you, you know what, you can't come into HR right now, you need to build more skills. You took it personally a bit, but you didn't dismiss what he had to say. Because what we don't get sometimes is that feedback to say, hey, you know what, you're not ready, but here's what you need to do. A lot of times we get the feedback you're not ready without any guidance. So that's
mhm,
wonderful that that gentleman said to you, you know what, you would be great, but, and here are some things that you need to do. And you went ahead and did them.
mhm.
That was great. That was
Yeah.
great. Awesome, awesome. So when you're thinking about how you can, similarly, you mentioned you want to give back to the youth. Here we're giving back to other corporate women, those who may be struggling. Maybe they were had a similar journey to yours. Maybe two or three things that you could say to them to empower them.
I would say always be mindful of how you show up because there is a narrative about you. And that narrative can be shaped and molded and changed, but always be mindful about how you show up and how you want others to see you. It's not so much saying that you have to not be who you really are, but it's really in corporate, there is a narrative, and that narrative will stick and follow you throughout every one of your positions. So it's very important for you to be mindful about that. I would also say make those connections, set up those meet and greets with people. Don't be afraid to introduce yourself to somebody on the elevator. You never know who you may have strike up a conversation with. And also, um, take advantage of every opportunity that that organization is offering to develop you. So if they have special cohorts they're putting together, raise your hand. If they need somebody to do a stretch assignment, say I'm willing to try it out. The more visibility you can get for yourself, the better.
Yes, thank you for that. And that's how we met. I know we met. I forget when we came together initially. I think it was on the committee for the Black employees. Did we meet before then? I'm trying to remember now.
It was through that workplace committee for the bold BRG.
Yes. Yes. So, and with that, again, going back to relationships, you never know who you'll meet because similarly, we go to work every day and we only see the people in their particular roles. But I learned, and I knew a lot about this about you, Danielle, because we've talked a bit, but there is so much more people bring to the table from their past. And we
Hmm.
tend to pigeonhole them into what they're currently doing. But we
Hmm.
need to get to know each other better because there is so much more behind our journey that we're leveraging today that you may not even know. So I loved when I asked you about you being part, opera, how you utilize that today, and what a great way you framed it, because we all have something that shaped us a long time ago that has nothing to do with what we're doing today, but it continues to ground us and keep us authentic. That is awesome. Awesome. So, Danielle, if somebody wanted to get in contact with you and wanted to pick your brain about, maybe they're considering something in the arts, or they are thinking about moving back into corporate or into teaching, how can they get in contact with you?
Well, I do have an email address. It's Danielle at talent360now.com. Let
Thank
me just double check that, Dr. Carter, make sure I give you the right information. Um,
Another one of her entrepreneurial endeavors that she has. Again, she's multi-talented, where she had also her business where she was working to some, I think it was outsourcing certain human resource talent into organizations, if I recall, right, Danielle?
yes, that's right. And Dr. Carter, I just have to correct that. It's Danielle at talent360.info.
.info. All right. Excellent. Excellent. Because we love to be able to again, it's about relationships, connecting people. Danielle knows a lot of people, especially if you're in the Pittsburgh area. So please reach out. We are here to serve each other. We need to continue to learn and grow, and we can't do that on our own. We need others to connect us, those who may have relationships, skill sets, knowledge, lessons learned, bumps, bruises that still stick with us that we can share with someone else. So, Danielle, any last words for my corporate sisters audience?
I would say, Dr. Carter, you and I did presentation one time when we were working together about resilience,
Mm-hmm.
grit and resilience, and that is a real thing to work on and just know that sometimes, and a lot of times, it may not be you. So having that grit and that resilience is very important as you endure the corporate landscape.
Yes, yes. And, sometimes we feel like nothing is going right, but we got to be able to get up and look in the mirror and say, I'm amazing and I will make today a new day. So
Hmm.
awesome. So, Danielle, I thank you for joining me. Appreciate what you have shared. You have empowered my audience to really think about their journey, and nothing they've done is dismissed. Everything they've done and been through shapes who they are today, and you are living that essence. So I thank you for joining me, and I thank you all in the audience for watching, and we will see you all soon.